50 years after keeping silent, renowned filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola has spoken out about her collaboration with Gene Hackman. One of the most influential film partnerships is rethought in light of this reality. Coppola revealed the true identity of the creative force behind the groundbreaking American film The Conversation, which changed the course of cinema forever through her confession rather than by telling another Hollywood tale. His long-hidden story exemplifies the enduring power of Hackman's work and the critical importance of his methods. The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola's 1972 smash hit, marked a turning point in his career. Despite his sudden stardom, Coppola refrained from making another massive epic. He opted instead to direct The Conversation, a modest, introspective psychological drama about an espionage specialist whose nightmares are all related to the dangers of his profession. Coppola cast Hackman, who was already famous but not widely known, as the reclusive surveillance expert Harry Call. Coppola has only lately mentioned how uncomfortable their initial meeting was. Hackman was hesitant to play a character with complex motivations and inner monologues. The director said, "Gene didn't say much when I first told him about the part. He merely paid attention and occasionally nodded. I understand this man," was all he said after I finished explaining it. Immediately it became clear to me that nobody else could pull off Harry Call. Coppola has broken her silence after decades of silence regarding the extent to which Hackman went to portray Harry Call. Unlike many celebrities, Hackman did not socialize with other players in the break. Away from the rest of the crew and cast, the actor isolated himself. Sometimes he would just sit and play the saxophone, which he had to learn specifically for the role, and ignore everyone around him. The fact that Hackman was alone wasn't an indication of his being tough, Coppola said. She was concerned about his health throughout filming. Hackman did this so he could experience the character's feelings of extreme isolation. The director said, "There was one day when I found Gene sitting in Harry's apartment set a long time after we were done shooting. He persisted in remaining and absorbed the eerie stillness in the character's quarters even after the crew had departed. His expression changed from Gene's to Harry's as he told me, 'This is where he lives. Is everything all right?' I inquired. I realized then that he had fully immersed himself in the role of Harry Call, not merely playing the part. All through the film, the method's effects are on full display. One of the most moving scenes occurs when Harry finds out that his surveillance footage may have captured evidence of a murder plot. Instead of using dramatic speech or displaying strong emotions, Hackman shows how terrifying things are becoming by shivering and looking eerily. They didn't rehearse this scene, according to Coppola now. It was difficult to discern who was playing what role, because he simply informed Hackman what was happening and rolled the camera, capturing an authentic moment of understanding. He added, "What many people don't understand about Gene is that his greatest strength wasn't in what he did, but in what he let himself feel. Feelings are often conveyed by artists. General Georges had the experience and showed it to us." Cooperation between Coppola and Hackman was not without its share of challenges. Filmed in a church, Hackman struggled to achieve the necessary vulnerability for Harry's confession scene. Coppola attempted a fresh approach after multiple unsuccessful tries. The director stated, "I told everyone to leave the set except Gene and the camera operator. Then I sat next to him in the confessional and told him about my own mistakes and guilt. I nodded to the operator and departed silently after approximately 20 minutes. He proceeded to film the version that would later be finalized. Rather than acting, what you witness is a man confronting his own inner demons." While filming The Conversation, additional issues surfaced that ultimately altered the final product. Bill Butler was employed to replace Haskell Wexler as director of photography after Coppola had issues with Wexler. Because of this adjustment, the film now has a more detached, voyeuristic tone, which is fitting for Harry's character. Unlike most films, David Shire composed the eerie piano score for this one before filming began. On set, Shire would play piano pieces to set the mood and encourage the actors to feel it. For Hackman, this was a particularly useful way to remain in Harry's thoughts. The film Blow Up by Michelangelo Antonio was a major influence on Coppola, particularly the concept of using technology to identify wrongdoers. But Harry Call was just as influenced by Steppenwolf, a novel by Hermann Hesse about a man who lives on the edge of society. The director stated, "I gave Gene both of these books before we started filming, not as research, but as emotional guides. All of them were absorbed by him." Critics praised the discussion, despite or perhaps because of these behind-the-scenes issues. This film was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. The 1974 Cannes Film Festival bestowed the esteemed Palme d'Or upon it. Unfortunately, it bombed at the box office due to the simultaneous release of The Godfather Part 2. Interestingly, the film's comparatively low box office performance has actually contributed to its longevity, allowing subsequent generations to continue discovering it. The work of Gene Hackman in The Conversation has been an inspiration to many artists. According to Al Pacino, he has studied Hackman's work, particularly his ability to convey intense emotions with minimal physical expression. According to Pacino, Gene showed us all that power doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's heartbreaking to watch a show that's really silent. Spielberg praised Hackman's work with Coppola, saying it was a model of character development. Spielberg went on to cast Hackman in The French Connection too. Many people, not only those who saw the film, have been affected by The Conversation. Concerns about surveillance, personal data protection, and ethical ambiguity may be more pressing today than they were upon its release. Credit for the film goes to Coppola and Hackman in Enemy of the State, in which Hackman played a role that resembled an older Harry Call. The 1995 addition of the film to the National Film Registry legitimized what moviegoers had suspected for some time, that the creators of the film had created something significant that would endure. What Coppola revealed about her time spent working with Hackman provides fresh insight into the dynamic between the two artists. The director said, "Gene taught me something very important about directing. He taught me that directing was just one of my many responsibilities. Other times, I just needed to clear the way for things to unfold naturally. While I was on set, I occasionally felt more like an observer than a director." In 2004, Hackman stepped away from acting, following strong turns in films, such as The Royal Tenenbaums, Unforgiven, and The French Connection. He maintained his low profile with the same measured determination he displayed in his many roles. His departure from television has only served to heighten admiration for his legacy. A growing number of critics are praising The Conversation as one of his most nuanced performances. In the film's final scene, Hackman demonstrates his commitment as Harry, convinced that his own apartment is bugged, burns it down piece by piece while searching for surveillance equipment. Over the course of 3 days, Hackman performed much of the damage himself for the scene. By the 3rd day, according to Coppola, Gene was physically and emotionally exhausted. What you're witnessing is a man who has sacrificed everything for his art form. He is more than just an actor. No amount of guidance could ever prepare him for the truth he feels when he sits among the ruins and plays the saxophone. The issues raised in The Conversation are more pressing today than they were in the past. In this day and age of ubiquitous data collecting, monitoring, and privacy concerns, Harry Call's moral dilemma appears to be a divine intervention. Themes of responsibility, shame, and the toll that technology takes on humans are universally relatable. Coppola and Hackman's film is more than meets the eye. It is an introspective contemplation of the nature of seeing and knowing, without taking any kind of action. In a recent interview, Coppola stated, "What I want people to understand about Gene is that his approach wasn't about ego, method, or technique. The issue revolved around the veracity. Because he believed that honesty resided in the misery of one's identity, he was willing to do whatever it took to make himself miserable." In an industry where showmanship is the norm, Gene's commitment to emotional truth stood out. Francis Ford Coppola has broken a silence regarding Gene Hackman, and the consequences extend far beyond the realm of cinema. It's a rallying cry for movie buffs everywhere. Their collaborative effort reminds us that even in this era of computer-generated spectacles and formula films, nothing beats a real person's face as a special effect. What Hackman created was irreproducible because he wanted to be Harry Caul and live alone. Not the performance itself, but the humanity it displayed, is what makes it memorable. Remember that there is more than just acting going on in the conversation the next time you watch it. In pursuit of truth, he is willing to barter his very soul. In this age of carefully constructed personas and filtered truth, Hackman's influence may be most felt through his portrayal of courage. Sometimes, like Harry Caul, we have to hunch over our headphones and search for meaning in the spaces between the words in order to hear the most powerful stories.